So I'm going to look at this Michigan and Ohio State game. I'm just going to look at the box score first, or the output windows, and then I'm going to go through some video clips. So this game was a really high quality game. If you look at the advanced stats, we see that Ohio State scored 1.16 points per possession and Michigan 1.14. They just had more possessions in the end. They both shot 1.3 points per shot, which is also a really high margin. However, Ohio State ultimately lost this game, in my opinion, from the turnovers. They didn't actually have that many turnovers, especially relative to Michigan, just a 1 point difference. However, those turnovers ended up being at really critical times, and Michigan scored off them. And as you can see below here, they scored 1.7 points per turnover, or from turnover possession. So it was those extra little few points that kind of won them the game. Looking at Ohio State's shooting charts, you can see that from catch and shoot three, where they scored about a quarter of their points, they didn't actually have that many uncontested attempts. Like, Michigan were really good at defense on this game. If you again look at the advanced stats, 90% of Ohio State's shots were contested, and you compare that to Michigan, where only 65.5% of their shots were contested. So you can see that here with the catch and shoot threes, only 2 uncontested shoot threes this entire game, and of course they went 50%. Who cares? It's such a small sample size. And then uncontested, they still shot really well. 42.9 from contested catch and shoot threes is still pretty good. The other thing that you see, though, is that they didn't actually have that much variation of shot attempts. They had no hook shots, no floaters, no breakaways, no putbacks, only one roll man. And that's because, essentially Michigan were guarding them as an NBA team. So they were basically allowing 3-point shots. So you can see catch and shoot threes. They were allowing some of these, though they were contested. They were allowing some off the dribble shots from 3. I don't distinguish between 2 and 3 in my off the dribble shots, but some of these were 3s. You can see that around the perimeter. And they weren't allowing that many shots around the rim. They did still have 20 shots at the rim, Ohio State, but you can see that they were really bad in post-ups, 1 of 5, and as we said, they didn't have that much variation in terms of the shot types. We'll get to these drives soon. They did, however, Ohio State shoot a lot in the mid-range, mainly from C.J. Walker, 3 of 4, 1 of 2, 2 of 3. And you don't always want mid-range shots because they're not great shots in terms of the efficiency and how many points you get from them, but they kind of had to rely on that. A lot of C.J. Walker pick and rolls that kind of got them to the high free throw line here and kind of popped up for a off the dribble jumper. Michigan's shooting charts, on the other hand, they scored most of their points, 30% from catch and shoot threes, 2 of 6 from uncontested shots. So you can see that they probably could have got more points than they did. However, that's kind of balanced out by 7 of 14 from contested catch and shoot three. So 50% is a really high number for that sort of category, especially if it's contested. So these kind of two things here balance it out. I suspect that there's going to be a lot of talk about this game regarding the 3-point shooting from Michigan, but though they still shot really well, they shot an overall, it was 47.8%. It kind of did balance itself out from the 2 to kind of uncontested to contested balance. They also had, though, all these different shot types here, and they kind of were the opposite, where they either had catch and shoot threes or they shot at the rim. There was almost no mid-range, as you can see here. 0, 0. That's the paint, 1 of 5. 0 of 1 from the top of the free throw line, 0, 0, 2 of 3. So they didn't really rely on the mid-range. It was all at the rim or around the perimeter. And you can kind of see that here, 3 of 3 from cuts, 3 of 3 from breakaways, 3 of 3 from rollmans, and 3 of 4 from putbacks. 2 of 2 from hook shots, and then 3 of 9, not great from post-ups, but they still existed. So they relied either on the perimeter or at the rim. So just looking at the box score, we're now going to go to the sorter. So starting off with Michigan's offense, the biggest mismatch in this game was essentially Dickinson versus any Ohio State center. So Dickinson's 7'1", and Liddell, who's Ohio State starting center, or even Kyle Young, who also plays center, they're both 6'8". So there was an obvious mismatch that Michigan could just exploit over and over again. So I've just compiled some clips here of that exact thing happening, and you kind of just... every position where they didn't almost go to this option seemed like a waste position, because if you can just see in this one, for example, as soon as his arms are up, Liddell just has absolutely no chance to compete with that sort of length. So again, another clip. Now, I audibly reacted to this clip when I saw it live, just because I was like, that's pretty crazy. But again, gets the ball, mismatch, and again, this time over Liddell and Young, you can kind of see when he's got his arms up, stretching like that, again, that length is just kind of difficult to make any sort of inroads against. And he's able to get the easy dunk. And this last clip of this exact sort of thing, again, pass it in. He misses his first shot, but he's able to get the rebound because no one can match his length, and he gets it in eventually. So you'll think, oh, how come they just don't double him? Well, you saw in that dunk clip that they essentially did bring two guys, and it made no difference. But also when you double him, that's just going to leave other places on the court that are open for either three-point shots or any sort of pump fake and a mid-range shot. So again, we've got a double here with Young coming over to help. But then you've got a 3v4 situation going on the other side of the court, which he finds, and he makes the open three-point shot. Now, that was it's not open, it was a contested three-point shot, but as we said, Michigan have been making those in this game, and either way, you've got a really good passer there who can find that man in the right-hand corner. Next clip, again, pass it into Dickinson. Double comes from Kyle Young. And again, you've got a 3v4 situation on the other end. He finds the man, doesn't just pump fakes this time, gets the open two-point shot, and gets right in. So that's exact same one-for-one copycat play from the one we just saw before. Finds the man in the corner, pump fake, dribbles in, easy mid-range, no one's near him, gets it in the bucket. The other problem that Michigan had, the other problem Ohio State had with Michigan and Dickinson specifically was was pick and roll. So every time they ran any sort of pick and roll, it was a problem with Dickinson because there was just essentially no answer to combat it. So you couldn't go over the screen because if we look at this clip here, you go over and immediately now you've got an isolated Dickinson who's got all the space behind him, and Sewing here, who's essentially the help man rotation defender, has no chance against him because he's also about only 6'8". So he gets the ball and no one can match him. Liddell can't block a shot and it goes in. Same thing, and I reckon Michigan should have done more of this, just easy, just pick and roll plays within the perimeter, just kind of in the 2-point zone. And again, goes over the screen. This man here, Seth Towns, he's got no chance against Dickinson either because he's only about 6'8" as well, and he gets the easy uncontested dunk. However, you can't go under the screen either. You go under the screen like CJ Walker is about to here, though it is, in fairness, about a moving screen. But they get an easy three-point shot because, as we said, Michigan's really hot, especially from contested shots, but uncontested shots, you're going to make it easy. Shoots, goes in. So you can't go under the screen. Could you hedge the screen? Not really, because you hedge the screen. And in this situation, wins this at the start of the second half. Ohio State makes the mistake of having no help defender, as Livers is here. While Kyle Young should technically probably stay here, and they should maybe switch it over here on the side, but there's just so much movement with Livers, who's one of their better players, making a movement on the right corner here, so Young follows him. There's no one there. They get the foul and free throws, and then they hedge it here. This time Liddell again, Walker following him. They try and shepherd this guy into the corner, but again, you've got only the help defender. If they decide to pass it into Dickinson is Washington, who's a guard, who's only going to be 6'6", 6'7" at the most. However, they don't even go to that option and just shoots a open three-point shot, and he gets it in from the right corner. So you can't go over the screen, otherwise he's isolated and there's no help defense. You can't go under the screen, otherwise you've got an open three-point shot, and you can't hedge the screen either, as there's no help defense that's going to get him. Also, they're really good at shooting three-point shots, so it's kind of like a lose-lose-lose situation. And lastly, we will look at some Ohio State offense clips. Now, that Dickinson-Liddell matchup does have a opposite. So Dickinson can beat Liddell with his size and his strength. But on the other end of the floor, because Liddell is such a small player who is shifty and he can shoot, he can Ohio State makes the most of that with, down screen actions and putting him out on the perimeter and getting him into a position where he can shoot open three-point shots and kind of punish the opposition's center with their lack of mobility. So here we've got an Ohio State set. We've got CJ Walker essentially sets the screen here for Dickinson. Liddell can pop open to the top of the perimeter, and Dickinson, with his size, just can't catch up or recover. Liddell gets an open three-point shot, and he makes it. So that's another way Ohio State could score points in this game. But the other way they scored points in this game was essentially using Liddell as a decoy on the edge of the perimeter, or just using his ability to shoot and draw that position, that center out onto the perimeter, and opening lanes for Dwayne Washington to charge at. So here we've got Dwayne Washington driving to the rim, And you can see that Dickinson, who would be a really good rim protector with his size, is out on the perimeter guarding Liddell. So that means when Washington does go to the lane, he's only got a guard to try and jump over, and he can get the layup. So just looking at the output window, if we look at Washington's shooting stats specifically, we can see that he went 7 for 7 on drives. So using that space, he kind of definitely made the most of it. So looking at one more clip, again, we'll see here Liddell tracking down. We'll see Dickinson, he has to move up to guard that player. And Washington, again, can only just have to go over a couple of guards from Michigan, and he can get that layup. So that's another way that Ohio State scored points in this game. However, they just turned the ball over at the worst possible times, and that sort of thing resulted in breakaway points for Michigan and eventually the Michigan win. If you want to see my full write-up of this game, you can go to the link below. You can see my blog where I've got a short essay essentially on what happened. And if you like any of the output windows that you've seen in this video as well, just check out the channel and you'll see a bunch of walkthroughs and links and things like that for those output windows. Thank you very much, and I hope you learned something.